a chance you can do something amazing to feel your passion blazing and shine.
Paint with every vision, dance in new directions, explode to new heights in your mind.
I will rise up with you today. Lift up my voice and boldly say, we are the ones we've been waiting for.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to AGNT Speaks. We come to you live each Wednesday for conscious conversation. So thank you for joining us. If you want to get up close and personal and be able to roll around with your questions, feel free to hop into the Zoom room. You can find the information on the Zoom room in the event link posted with this live broadcast. So we are here to engage in spiritual conversation. I am Reverend Erin, and I am the senior leader of Unity Village Chapel, which is the spiritual center here on grounds at Unity Village. And I have with me today David Alexander, the Reverend from Atlanta. He is serving for the Spiritual Living Center in Atlanta in Georgia. So welcome today, Reverend David. Thank you for being here with us. And today we're co-hosting a conscious conversation. So let's get started.
All right. Well, thank you, Reverend Erin. It's always a great pleasure to be with you and doing this AGNT Speaks. And hello to everybody who's tuning in. I wanted to start the conversation by and have a deeper conversation in our Facebook, the chat room, the Zoom room. I got to get all my terms right. Based on this quote that I'm going to share, but based on like where we currently are and where our vision is, because I feel like we're in sort of a lull point. And there's a tendency in when something drags on longer than we expected it to get, lazy or fall asleep or just let our guard down a little bit. And I don't want that to happen in terms of social change and the consciousness movement that is taking place. So been reading a lot of different things, and one of them is The Conscious Activist by James O'Day. Great resource and great book. And in that it says, he says this: step far enough into the world's injustices, cruelty, and stark brutality, and they will hammer away at your idealism. They will even shatter your dreams of being an effective agent of change. However, if your vision is rooted in your heart, when the heartbreak comes, you will feel pain, loss, and deep deprivation, but it will not be the end of the story. It will be the beginning of a sacred transformation. And so it's that idea of, do we have the courage to feel deeply the wounds and the trauma that is being felt by the world? Or do we feel it for a little bit because everybody's attention is on it and it's all over the news, but then we turn away, kind of like we spoke last time, the symptoms of spiritual starvation. We numb out and we distract ourselves. Or do we have the courage to go, I love that part, deep enough, go deep enough, right? Because if you on the surface, you're outraged, but if you go deep enough, it'll actually break your heart, right? And it'll just completely, it sometimes feels like just destroy you. I had an experience not long ago where I just kind of broke down talking about when I was doing some writing and thinking about control. And I don't know if you and I talked about this last time, but I had a complete breakdown about the fact that realization that I could not control the experience that my sons have in the world. Right? There's all these things I can control about their experience in the world and how I raise them, but that I cannot control. I cannot do anything about the ways in which the world might seek to harm them. And that realization just broke me down. But to James O'Day's point, it's not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a sacred transformation. When we go deep, far enough into those painful places, then something new emerges. And I think our vision forward has to be built not only on moral imperatives that are grounded in our faith traditions, but also on proximity, to the issue, right? It has to be real for us. So me, it's obviously very real because of my children, but we all have to find that thing that makes it very real to us. So that's what I want to kind of bounce off of and talk with everybody about today.
Yeah, and I think that's a real invitation, David, because a lot of times in New Thought, we talk about the law of mind action, and we talk about visions, and we talk about launching these visions or creating a world that works for all. But if you go into the deeper teachings of New Thought, it's not just the law of mind action. It's not mental thinking. It's not that I can, think this stuff into being. It's actually a heart-centered. It's a connected emotional thinking. So,
Well, I think, oh, there she is.
that, can you see me? Did my...
You froze up for a little bit there and talking about heart connection, but you came back.
So that heart connection is important. It's important to use the emotional field, to use the field of emotion and feeling with intelligence and thinking and vision, because that is what creates a force field. That's what creates life. That's what we are. And that's what is magnetic and dynamic and creative. And so to think that we can just demonstrate a world that works for all without feeling, without opening our hearts and having that heartbreak is just missing the mark a little bit. I had just some raw emotion last night around some of my experiences with the news. I was looking at that story out of Pennsylvania where a man came into a convenience store, didn't want to wear a mask, and he started being belligerent with the clerk. And I don't remember if they knew he had a gun then or not. I don't think that they did, but then he said something like grabbed a handful of cigars and ran out the door. So the clerks, like their job is to follow someone if they stole something, followed him out to the parking lot, and the man started shooting at him. And then, it talks about how he's later apprehended by the police, and he wasn't killed. He had a bullet in his bum and his hip or something like that, and then was flight lifted to a hospital. And it was just this feeling in my gut of going, he's white. I bet he's white. I bet that man's white. Because if he was black, I don't think he would be alive right now. And that was it just made my heart bleed. And then just to feel that and that sadness in just the experience we're having, this collective experience of honoring all life and all life is sacred. And what would that be like if everyone that is not here on the planet right now that died in this way was instead shot in the bum,
Right. And we're told constantly in the justice movement, we're told by police officers, well, we're trained, if you use your weapon, then you use it for deadly force. Because I've said that many times.
And they knew he had a gun. They knew he had shot at a store owner. Shoot the ankle,
shoot the calf, shoot the bum. Shoot. No, and they say, oh no, when we're trained to use deadly force. When we pull our weapon, our intention is
right. And sometimes, the conversation is, well, we thought they may have had a weapon, or they may have wanted to use their weapon. And this was like, we knew they had a weapon. We knew they used their weapon, and they're running from the police. They're not saying don't, do anything. They're, and so it was just like, oh, my heart. And then on the same note,
and the headline was he wasn't handling the pandemic well, right?
Yes.
He had
his lawyer already was speaking for him, saying that. And, so it's just to experience that. And then on the, in the same evening, I was gracing some Facebook videos and stuff of some folks that think very differently from me, but they were posting videos of the trouble that police officers are having and compassion for police officers in general in the field right now, and how, they'll be trying to move through traffic in an area, and people are hitting their cars and bashing in their windows, and and so I saw these other videos of police officers trying to move through communities, and some real violence and some real difficult times, and having a routine traffic stop, and then having a whole bunch of people come around with their cameras and yelling names at them. And these police officers in this video were just standing their ground. They didn't have their weapons out. They just kept talking, and even with fingers in their faces and shouting at them and screaming obscenities, the police officers were just standing here like acknowledging, someone looked like they were gonna, have some sort of a medical condition just from the whole anxiety. And the police officer in the middle of these threats said, do you need a chair? Do you need to sit down? Do you need us to call you an ambulance? So these police officers like really had training, like really amazing training in, I don't get to go crazy in a situation that's crazy. And I wouldn't judge the life of a police officer as far as like reacting. I can't even imagine that.
Yeah.
But it's like my heart was breaking for them. I saw all these very young officers and these beautiful people in crowds with, total anxiety, knowing they are human beings that are experiencing this too. So it's like what you talked about this collective trauma. If our hearts are open and we focus on what Reverend Deborah Johnson said, one of our last AGNT speaks, if we focus on not becoming polarized and going all or nothing, good or bad, and we just allow ourselves to feel, there is so much in this moment to be present to. And it just calls for, like you said, this heartbreaking, open compassion. Let me be a part of the vision that brings us into a positive future.
Right. And to lead ourselves, right? To lead ourselves with curiosity, right? Curiosity about the perspective of the other. So all of that anxiety, that trauma, that stuff that police officers deal with every day, it's like, where do they go with that? Well, they go home. They go home to their wives and their partners and their children and their dogs and they have to do something with all that energy. Just like we have to do something with the energy that we experience, and people of color have to do something with the energy that they experience and walking in the world. And so the processing of anxiety and trauma is really an important topic for us to be focused on.
Yes, that's exactly what I thought when I saw all these young officers just trying to be with people in a way that, how can we just diffuse the situation? How can we just diffuse the situation? And so that's a great conversation for the Zoom room. So we're going to bring it into the Zoom room. We have an announcement about an upcoming program. It's Spiritual Uplift Ministries. It's going to be starting this week, but you still have a chance to get involved. So here it is, spiritually guided experience of healing racism, social uplift. So there is a class and a dialogue series. It is hosted by Unity of Columbine, but is open to everyone. So if you are interested in having deeper conversations, August 6th, 13th, and 20th, please join us. It's Pacific time from 5 to 7 p.m. And so you need to register for this group, but go ahead and learn more information. We'll be posting that as well, again, on our AGNT site, where you've had that information for a bit here. So thank you for considering joining a dialogue, and there are so many opportunities right now to get connected. So we are glad to be your host here on AGNT Live. Hop into the Zoom room if you want to have a deeper conversation. And remember, if you want to find out more about our leaders like Reverend David, myself, and where we're live streaming on Sundays, you can check that out in the bio section of the AGNT Leadership Council. We are your council here to support you. We're led by Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith, and it is an honor to have this conscious conversation with you this week. We'll see you next week.
Why? Because we have not yet manifested the great dream or the great principles that are installed in our Declaration of Independence, in the founding documents of this country. Because both then and now our understanding of independence and freedom lack spiritual maturity. Manifested. You see, spiritual insight and your spiritual evolution requires not just the insight of the spiritual truth, but also the maturation of that truth in order for you to live into it. And so while I believe there was a divine spark of inspiration that authored so much of the founding documents of our great country, I believe that there is not just the spark that is required, but the maturation of the insight, spiritual maturation in order for it to come into fruition. It's not enough for you as an individual to have an insight that you're prosperous, an insight that you're whole, an insight that God is within you. You have to mature and develop into that idea. You have to allow it to marinate into your being and do something to your soul and change your behavior and your outlook and your thoughts and your whole constitution, you see.
Every day's a chance you can do something amazing.